Welcome to this mini course. I'm Marco and I have plans to teach you how to create easily a real-time chat system using Azure SignalR and Azure Functions with a JavaScript client consuming such services. Since it's a brief explanation, I will assume that you already have Visual Studio 2022 and Visual Studio Code installed, and an already created account on Azure, and some knowledge in C# and JavaScript. We will need Postman as well to help us with your development, so if you don't have Postman installed, download at this link. So our first step will be to configure the necessary services before putting our hands in code. Let's create a new resource group for the solution called RG Web Chat. After creation, go to the resource group. Now we need to create the services itself. So let's start with the app services so we can host our server application containing endpoints. On the search bar, search for app services and choose it. Click on the Create App Service button. Set the resource group to the one that we created previously, I mean RG Web Chat. We will give a name to our Functions app to FA Web Chat, and we will be using .NET 6 as runtime stack under Windows Operating System. I forgot to mention to keep the publish on code option. Oh, and if the name FA Web Chat is already used, choose a different name like FA Chat 1234 or any other number or name. Also set the region to the same region of the resource group. It's a good idea to keep all the services on the very same location unless you have a very specific need in real scenarios. So set this to East US. Keep the SKU as it is so we can use this for free. In a real scenario, you may need to choose a more appropriate SKU based on your needs. SKUs can vary in terms of capacity and power. Check the Azure calculator for prices if you are interested to learn more about prices. Well, and since free SKUs never will be zone redundant, keep it disabled. Just to clarify, zone redundancy is about resilience and scalability. Now click on the next. This is about deployment. Since this mini training is not a comprehensive training about Azure services, I'm explaining the things in short ways, and deployment is all about CI/CD of your application. We will not be using this, so keep it disabled and go to the next. For network, we don't have much choice using our free plan, so let's go to the monitoring. We will not be using this one as well, but for a real-world scenario, it's a good thing to turn it on to receive performance and health reports in real time about your application, and also it's a good way to observe eventual crashes on your application. You can turn it off for our learning purposes. Next is tags. No need for tags here. So going to the next and last step, it's time to create and deploy our function app. Just press the create button and wait some while. The deployment has been completed. We will go to the resource later because we will now create our SignalR service. So on the search bar, search for SignalR and choose it. Press the Create SignalR button. As you can deduce, we will be using the same resource group RG Web Chat. We will call all SignalR services as our web chat, and we will place on the same region of the Functions app and the resource group East US. Once again, if SR Web Chat is already used, choose a different name like SR Web Chat 1234 or any other number or name. For the pricing tier, let's use the free one, which is more than enough for our training purposes, but you may be considering others based on your real scenario needs. Service mode, change it to the serverless. Default mode is the default value for service mode when you create a new SignalR resource. In this mode, your application works as a typical ASP.NET Core SignalR application, where you have a web server that hosts a hub and clients can have duplex real-time communication with the hub server. The only difference is instead of connecting client and server directly, client and server both connect to the SignalR service and use the service as a proxy. In serverless mode, you don't have a hub server and it's our scenario. Unlike default mode, the client doesn't require a hub server to be running. All connections are connected in a serverless mode, and the Azure SignalR service is responsible for maintaining client connections like handling client pings. In default mode, this is handled by the hub servers. And classic mode is a mixed mode of default and serverless mode, and the mode is decided by whether there is a hub server connect when the client connection is established. If there is a hub server, client connection will be routed to a hub server. Otherwise, it will enter a serverless mode where client to server message cannot be delivered to hub server. On network, keep as it is, I mean public endpoint. And in tags, no need to add tags, just go to the next and last step. Click on the Review plus Create button, and then click on the Create button after the validation. After our SignalR service got created, we are ready to code our chat system. Minimize your web browser and open the Visual Studio. Create a new project. Search for a template called Azure Functions and press the Next button. Our project name will be Web Chat Server. I will check the place solution and project in the same directory, but it's not necessary. On this screen, ensure that you are really using .NET 6 and HTTP trigger as functions, and keep the use of Azure checked. For the authorization level, change it to Anonymous. And create the project. As you can see, there is a default created function. Let's rename it to negotiate.cs. Change the function name as well to negotiate. We will be working inside this file, but before code, it's necessary to add some libraries. With the second mouse button, click on Dependencies and choose Manage Nugget Packages. Search for webjobs.extensions.signalr service and install it. By returning to negotiate, add the following lines before the namespace. This function will not be a static async task, only static, and the type will be SignalR connection info, and the name of the function will be negotiate, so please perform the following changes as it is displayed on the screen. Drop the method post and get, clean it and set the root to negotiate. And it could be a good idea to drop the log as well. Let's clean all the code inside the function. Now let's add a new parameter on our function just like you see on the screen. We are almost there, just need to create a return for our function. So place this line of code, return connection info. I like to clean up unused libraries, but it's not necessary. Anyway, I did. In fact, there is one and very important step. Every SignalR application requires a connection string in order to communicate with the service with the Azure. Open your Azure portal and go to the SignalR service that you created. Can you see the connection string option on the blade? Go there. Click on that copy icon. Now return to Visual Studio and open your local settings file. Create a new line inside the values called Azure SignalR connection string, just like in the screen. Inside the double quotes, just paste the copied value. So okay, we are done with our negotiation function. Let's test it using Postman. Run the project. Now that the project is running, open your Postman. Since you are running the project, click on the PowerShell icon on the Windows bar and copy the URL for the negotiate and paste it on Postman. Press the send button. Yep, looks like our negotiation function is working good. It's returning a URL and a token as expected, but you are probably interested to know what is this thing of negotiation, right? Okay, no plans to disappoint you, I will explain. In this scenario, a negotiation is the attempt to retrieve the URL and the token to be consumed after few checks based on the connection string that points us to the SignalR service. So you will receive an access token with a URL containing the web address and the hub name. The hub name is a channel inside the SignalR. In other words, a SignalR service should have one or more channels, and the communication will always flow inside the assigned channel. Check this line, we decided to call it as my chat room, but it could be chat room number 1, chat room number 2, and on, and in this scenario we can group the clients by hub names, so they can speak in between. And if you wish a more rude and raw definition of what a negotiation is in your scenario, it's the entry point of an agreement expressing our intention to consume a SignalR service. By the way, the explanation was a courtesy because for our training you don't need to care about it because we will be using libraries that handle all of this process. But knowledge is never enough and you may face different scenarios in your daily basis. Well, it will be a hard task for us to create a chat application without interface, so I think it's a good time for us to start to create our client application. Open the Visual Studio Code. I suggest you to install this extension in order to execute a web server easily from Visual Studio Code. Now let's create our project. Create a new file called index.html and place it in any folder. I will choose the parent folder where the server source code is located, but you can place it wherever you want. Now I will create another folder called Web Chat Client. Start your page by placing some blank HTML structure like this. I will add the jQuery library to make the things easier, so go to your favorite search engine and choose some jQuery already hosted in any CDN. Now, a very important step, jQuery may be optional, but the SignalR library is not. So let's search for the SignalR library in any CDN. Click on the copy script tag and paste it on your HTML. Okay, now we need to initialize our SignalR library. Please add those lines. Pause the video if you wish. 1, 2, 3. We can also create an event handler to trigger some action when the SignalR is connected, or in case of errors, so please add the code snippet on the screen. Before we go, we need to configure cores on our server application. Please stop the execution on Visual Studio and open the file local.settings.json. Add the following lines. Now execute the server application. Open the PowerShell icon and copy again the URL. Now can you see the quotes? We must put the negotiate URL inside there, but without the /negotiate, okay? I just asked to execute to see if everything is really okay so far. Looks like we are going to the right direction. It's a good time for us to create the interface of our web chat. Please put this style on your HTML. Pause the video if necessary. Now pause the video and put the body. Okay, and return to your browser and refresh the page so you can understand the interface. It's pretty easy. On the upper you see incoming messages and on the bottom you can send the messages. Any doubt? Probably not, right? Can you notice this send function that doesn't exist yet? I expect that every time you press the send button, a message must be sent to the server. However, we don't have yet an endpoint to receive any message, so let's create it. Please stop the execution of the server project and create a new file called sendmessage.cs. Add the following lines upon the namespace declaration. And now let's do some cleanup. Please remove those lines. And change the return object to OK result. We need to work on definitions for this endpoint, so we will be working with post method, so remove the get and set the root to send message. And after the log parameter, add the following parameter. This parameter will handle our SignalR service. It could be a good idea to create a model for the received data, so let's create a model called message. I will place the model in this very same file to save our time instead of a different file for the model. So please add this model after our static class. Now let's put the effective code to the class and finish it. Just add those lines of code and we are set. Explaining the code, I am receiving a JSON whose ktext is the payload of the message itself. Then I will deserialize this object to get the values. And then I will send it to SignalR, and when it happens, everybody connected on the hub name will receive the message immediately. Now let's implement on our client application. Keep the server application running for now and go back to your Visual Studio Code. Notice the send function on the bottom. This method doesn't exist yet, so let's create it. Pause the video and place this code snippet. 1, 2, 3. We need to put on the URL the very same URL as on the PowerShell window. Just copy and paste it. As you can notice, we will perform a post to our API containing the expected JSON. The expected JSON will grab the value of the input box and transfer to the API. But it's not over, it's missing the last step. We need to create a listener for SignalR so we can receive the message and make it appear on the screen. Open a space between connection.start and the send function. Now pause the video and put this code in between. 1, 2, 3. Basically, we will append a new line to the view messages div every time we receive a message from SignalR, okay? The event new message will be triggered all the time when it happens. And just one more thing, that alert could be very annoying, so delete the alert and put this line instead. Okay, it's time to test. If your live server on Visual Studio Code is not running, start it. For a better test, let's open a new private window of the web browser and point to the same URL. So copy-paste the URL of the other browser instance like this. Okay, organizing all the windows. Let's have fun. See, we have now a very basic chat application. And that's it, I really hope you enjoyed this video. See you on the next video.